Welcome back to the Monmouth Moms podcast here in very cold day in winter. We are focusing on all things wellness this month and fitness and self-care and really just from, taking some time from the crazy busy season and just spending some time to really, kind of reflect and figure out what our goals are for 2023. I think this has kind of been a common theme for the podcast lately, where we are, really trying to focus on resolutions and goals for the year. I'm a big goal-oriented person. I like to, at least within my work, which is a big piece of kind of like, I don't know how I identify myself, but I really love to work. So I always like to make new goals for the year of like where I want to bring, Monmouth moms, where I want to grow professionally. But outside of that, I don't necessarily always have specific resolutions maybe that I stick to. My daughter and I have been going to the library a lot recently. We started doing that in like October or November of 2022, and we're going weekly and checking out a couple books and then reading in the evenings. I was trying to specifically do it, obviously, to get her to read more instead of like being on the screens and stuff like that. And then I was like, well, I should be reading more too, instead of like work. I ended up working while she's like, on her iPad, and it wasn't a good habit. So I'm really trying to like make that more of a habit, and so that's been good and something that hopefully we stick to. But that's been going really well. So thank you for joining us today. We have Dr. Suzanne Quigley from Red Bank Orthodontics.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So we've met once before, right, at my event in person.
Yes, we participated in the event.
Yes.
It was great.
Yeah.
Really well attended.
In the spring. Yeah. That was a fun one. I got to think about if I'm going to do that one again. but yeah, it was fun because it's like, you're kind of in the house all winter and you have cabin fever. So it was like a nice time for everyone to come out and like, do something fun. And, it's indoors, which is nice because sometimes like that time of year can be still pretty chilly. So yeah.
And especially coming out of the COVID season we were in and not doing those kind of events, it was great to get back to that.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good one. So thanks again for coming. Where do you live?
I live in Lincroft.
Okay.
I was raised in Lincroft.
Okay.
So
I love Lincroft. Yeah. Lincroft is part of Middletown, or is it has a separate elementary schools, or how does that work?
It does have a separate elementary school, but it's part of Middletown Township.
Okay. So then like the high school kids go to north or south, basically. There's no.
Yeah, in Lincroft they go to south.
Oh, Lincroft. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And you are the owner of Red Bank Orthodontics. Tell me where'd you go to school? How did you get into dentistry?
So I went to what's now Rutgers Dental School.
Okay.
And I went there thinking I would become a pediatric dentist, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great experience at my pediatric dentist in Red Bank, Dr. Bill Lieberman.
Okay.
And he, you can tell how much he loved it. I always loved going. And I wound up going in, I never had braces as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I wound up going through school and realizing, oh, that's something I really am interested in. There's a lot, it's very different than dentistry and pediatric dentistry, but I wound up switching gears, so to speak. But that interest in pediatric dentistry definitely popped up later on because I did orthodontics in a pediatric dental office for 14 years.
Okay.
A day a week, and then I grew it to 2 days a week, and then that really set the stage for some of the experiences that I bring now to my practice. That's part of, like, if, everyone talks about their brand, but part of my brand is, I definitely pull from my experiences in the pediatric office and dealing with spectrum kids and sensory kids and that kind of thing.
So when you were growing up, did you want to be a dentist? Did you know that you wanted to go into the medical field at all?
Well, I remember age 10, I wanted to be Dr. Quigley. And then originally I thought I was going to be a pediatrician.
Uh-huh.
And then I worked in a pediatric office in Little Silver. And that was like Saturdays and one night a week. And I still went to college thinking I was going to go to medical school. And then I liked the hands-on aspect of dentistry, and I ended up just applying to dental school while I was in college.
So you went to where? Which high school?
Red Bank Catholic.
Okay. So in high school, did you gravitate towards, I always like to like figure out how people like decide that they want to be, in this field or in any specific field. Like, did you gravitate towards like biology? Did you do well in like math and stuff like that? Is that something that like you
Totally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, total science nerd.
Right.
And, the classes like the arts, language arts, those were more like I could get through those classes. I just didn't enjoy them.
Yeah, it wasn't interesting to you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I ended up, like, it just made total sense to me to gravitate toward, and it was more life science, not like, ironically now what I do has a lot of physics in it, but it was back then a lot of biology, and I was a biology major in college.
Okay, got it. And then you applied to
Dental.
which is now, it was UMD&J?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right. Mhm.
So, and then, so now it's called Rutgers, but I went to
Right.
Rutgers Dental School and then did my orthodontic training there as well.
Right. Well, that's nice. And then, so you spent some time living there, or you were always in Monmouth County?
So I lived in, like, closer to school for many years, and then for my last 2 years of my residency, I moved home.
Okay. So back in Lincroft, and then tell me, so you, I'm assuming you met your husband along the way. How did you meet?
So, yeah, we met when when I was in my orthodontic training.
Okay.
So I ended up, it was about I had a year left in my orthodontic training.
Is he in the field as well?
No,
Oh,
he's
no.
an engineer.
Oh,
so
okay.
Another science person.
A science person. A few years ago, I guess it's probably about 4 years ago now, I wasn't really sure. I was still actually working with Monmouth Moms, but I was doing it more on the side, and I had sold wine for a long time. And that industry has become more and more of, like, a lot more people buy their wine online. It's very competitive. There's tons and tons of wines out there, so the margins just kept shrinking for retailers, and obviously the commission salespeople were just kind of making less and less. So there was a lot less opportunity to make a lucrative income, where 10 years ago it was, or longer than that now, 15 years ago, it was kind of a different story. So if I didn't want to travel and take on like multiple states, managing teams and stuff like that, as a mom, I just didn't really want to be on the road like that. So I was looking for alternative things to sell. So I did take a brief stint selling CAD software to engineers. And it was really hard because my experience is they just don't, they like their way. And it was very hard to like convince them. And I didn't understand it because I don't have that kind of mind. So I'm like, I just couldn't understand. My dad's an engineer, but I just couldn't like connect with them. It was really hard. And
I could see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And every Monday, like, I love to work, and Mondays, I like, they talk about the Sunday scaries. I was like, oh, this is brutal. And I actually worked for a great company. The team was awesome. And the people I worked with were really great people, but the actual product itself, it was like, I just couldn't do it. I don't know.
Yeah,
They say,
no wonder it's a short stint.
Yeah, yeah. They say, like, if you're a good salesperson, you could sell, like, ice to Eskimos and stuff like that. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think you have to be passionate about, I think you have to love what you're doing and be passionate about, like, know that you can do it. Like, I know personally, I don't think I could sell medical devices to doctors. Like, that's something that I could, speak about intelligently and be like, this is, I'm sure you get lots of people at your door all the time, like, trying to get the new product,
Sure.
in your office. And it's not something that I think I could do well. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, so you meet your husband, and you have how many kids?
We have 2 girls.
Okay. And how old are they?
They are 15 and 13.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, we're a sophomore in high school and an 8th grader.
Does she also go to RBC?
No, the older one goes to Mast.
Oh, okay. My sister went there.
It's a
Great school.
great school.
Yeah.
And if you're the right person for it, it's, I think, heaven for them.
When you were high school age, Allied, were they around yet?
They did. I just don't think I had the awareness
Yeah.
of it. No social media. I think it was just word of mouth. I probably
Right.
had no really awareness of it.
Right. There weren't as many, though. Like, when I was in high
Right.
school, there was Mast. Obviously, my sister went there. I think there was communications. There was obviously High Tech High. That was like one of the first ones. And then there was maybe allied health, but now there's more. I think there's like several. I don't know if you call them magnet
the
schools, but they're
biotech. There's
biotech. Yeah, but they're incredibly very, very good schools. Great opportunity.
Yep.
And very hard to get into. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So does your daughter enjoy Mast?
She loves it.
Yeah.
She's all in.
They were like completely decimated by Sandy.
I
the
think,
school, and so it's brand new, like everything that they
I
have
think
there.
they're still working on some buildings too, but
Interesting.
they just moved their supply. They're moving their supply building where they have all their uniforms and stuff like that. I think they're opening that now, but there's another space. I think the gym. I think she said they're still working on. So
That's an early morning. I remember my sister got on the bus at like 5:15 or something.
oh wow! So she gets on the bus at around 6:40. So
Oh, that's not too bad.
not too
Okay.
bad. But
Yeah.
there are so many kids from Middletown Township, so I think it's a more condensed bus route, and it's about an hour to school for her. But she's happy to be going there. So,
Is it still like a smaller class size, or?
yeah, about 70.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty small.
Yeah, so she loves it. And my younger one is in 8th grade at St. Leo's, which is where I went.
Oh.
And she's waiting to see if she's going to go to St. John Vianney or
Yeah.
Red Bank Catholic.
Or I know it's the
Yeah.
two. My daughter goes to St. Ben's, so it's the same thing. But
Yeah.
they're only in 2nd grade, and she's like arguing with us the other day about how she's going to SJV, and we're like, okay, or you might go to. I'm going to SJV because all the other girls are saying that.
Of
I'm like,
course.
well,
Yep.
you have a little bit of time, so I think.
Yep.
I think we have some time to figure it out. You don't know, who knows what's going to happen when they're in middle school, so what they want to do. So yeah, but St. Leo's is also a great school.
Yeah.
We hear great things about it. So you live in Lincroft now.
Yep.
So what's it like growing up in the town that you grew up in? I know very similarly. I grew up in Hazlitt, and I live in Aberdeen, which is basically the same area.
It's funny because I never imagined myself living anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I love the area. On my first date with my husband, I said, I'm not leaving this small little area, because he's from New England, so I was very clear on the first date.
My husband says the same thing because he'll bring up like, oh, we're moving to, he gets fed up with the taxes and all the stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Occasionally, he's like on a like rant about New Jersey, and we're moving to North Dakota. I'm like, what? And he's like, no, you'll never leave Monmouth County. I'm like, well, now I can't.
Right.
I've clearly made a business out of it. So. But yeah, so same thing.
Yeah, and really, I didn't practice in Monmouth County for the first half of my career. So I finished orthodontic training in 2003.
Okay.
And then I bought the practice in 2020. So I was saying how before I worked 14 years in a pediatric office, and I started the orthodontic program in there and built it. And then I also had owned a practice before with a friend of mine
Oh, interesting.
in Woodbridge.
Okay.
She was my friend in orthodontic school, and she lived in Summit, but was from California, and she got into Rutgers for orthodontic school. So that's how she came here, and we wound up purchasing a practice midway, approximately geographically between us, and then that's when I had I got married, had my 2 girls. She was super supportive and helpful. She's 15 years older, so her son was a little older and totally understood the whole newborn thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was still in the office a couple of weeks later after having at least the second one. The first one I probably took a little longer, but
That's what Dr. Sally said too. She's like, the patients can't wait, or they don't want to wait, so you have the baby in the office. So just do what you have to do, right?
Yeah, and then when I came back from I'd maybe not come back full time, but part time. But the first day I was really back full time. My partner wound up having a cancerous mass removed the next day.
Okay.
So I had a practice in my lap with a 2 under 2.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just not what I had planned or bargained for. And it was just the, 2 under 2, running a business. We had split things, the tasks, and I'm not even worried about the orthodontic stuff. I was trained to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I heard Dr. Sally talking about the business stuff, and it was exactly that was that kind of stress, where dealing with that and then taking on her, what she had, her workload.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And 13 months later, we wound up selling it. I just decided that's not the life I wanted.
Right.
That constant, you make it happen. You're on that, I call it the little hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep going. And then at some point I was like, this is like for mental health reasons, just and to enjoy your life. Like I wasn't enjoying I was getting everything done, but I lost that enjoyment of everything.
Right.
So
well, because you always have it hanging over your head, right? Like even the
Yeah.
weekends, it's like, okay, well, what did I not do? Because you're treating patients during the day, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to worry about the administrative stuff, obviously your
Absolutely.
staff, making sure that you have new patients coming in, or making sure that the current patients that you have are coming back. And I'm interested. It's a business, right?
Of course.
So
and then there's life outside
there's
of it.
life, yeah. And I always give like kudos to all the moms that have 3 under 5 and 2 under 2. I actually never did that. Not on purpose, but my son was 9 when my daughter was born, and we never had another one. So I don't know how you do it, like, because the baby doesn't, the baby's sleeping and then the toddler's running around, like, so you don't sleep, really.
Oh, no, you don't.
Ever. So I never experienced that, but it's must have been, and then running a business on top of that, it's like, you only have so much energy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm sure it was very, stressful.
Yeah, I mean, there was a part of me that felt like I failed.
Right.
But I chose my sanity and my family, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. And I think so much of that experience, like, because buying a practice and then selling a practice, that made this the second time.
You knew how to do it.
Yeah, I knew how to do it.
Right.
I also knew
what not to do.
Correct. And also, like, what is balance for me? I think as a working mom, professional mom, like, if you go to school that long, like, and you love what you do, you can't help but not want to do it.
Right.
But at the same time, you have a family. You don't want to, you want to do everything the best way you can. I think I always say you can have it all, just not every day.
So true. Yeah. I love like talking about that topic about like the whole balance, and you can have like everything, but I think it's very true. Like you can have certain things in your life. You probably felt like you had failed at the time, but now, we'll obviously get to where you are now, but now you've, it's all like they're all stepping stones, and I always tell my son that, because he can get kind of in his own head about certain things. I'm like, you don't, you're learning this now because, one day you're going to use that, and just, don't burn any bridges. Stuff like that,
or you don't know why you're going through the experience.
Right.
The reason will reveal itself with time.
Yeah, right. No, that's very true.
So, yeah.
So you sold the practice, and then you worked.
I was still working in the pediatric office.
Okay.
I had a friend who had a partial ownership in a corporate dental office, so he needed to replace an orthodontist in one of his practices. So I worked for 6 years in corporate dentistry.
Okay.
Which that was a totally different business model, and one that it's very very stressful from a production standpoint. It's much faster paced.
Like kind of making like
low reimbursement insurances accepted,
okay.
And then you have to have higher volume. So I had a wonderful team, but I was just on overdrive trying to be me in that environment and giving the experience that I wanted to give. And then I realized that there was just not enough time to do that, and it was starting to wear on me. So I ended up really thinking about it and reevaluating it, and I had approached the orthodontist from whom I bought the Red Bank office and said, hey, I was also thinking about leaving the pediatric office, and I just felt like there was something missing.
Like you were doing what you love, but you weren't doing it the way you wanted to do it.
That's perfectly stated.
Right.
Yeah. And I knew, I had known him for years, and how I met him was a very, interesting story as well. And I approached him, and I had some friends' kids in treatment in the pediatric office, and I didn't know really what to do, and he gave me an opportunity to at least treat them within his practice,
right?
Which is extremely generous and kind, and that's what I did.
Right. So it is an interesting story. I know it because we have worked together with Monmouth Moms, and we did the Meet a Mom interview, I guess, within the past year.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about how he actually knew you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it was at a professional orthodontic meeting, and he had approached me and said, I knew your sister. So, the stories most people who know, like, have heard, not most, a lot of people have heard the story. So
In the area.
in the area. So
Right.
my sister was killed September 11th. She worked for Cantor Fitzgerald.
Sorry.
Thank you. So I was in my, I just started my second year of my orthodontic training. So it was a 3-year program that I was in. And Rutgers Dental School is University Heights. It's up on this hill. And I was coming out of a class, and someone said the towers are on fire, and you could see them from the courtyard in the dental school.
Oh, wow.
So we all ran outside, and I'm just standing there in utter shock. And I'd visited her at work and been in the building, so I knew exactly where she was. And so, that morning, I mean, everyone has a story of where they were that morning and the experience they had and trying to call loved ones and if they knew anyone that, in the city. And so anyway, the reason he knew her is because he had met her several years prior when she was working in a store that he had gone to shop, and she had just accepted to go to Holy Cross College, which is where he went. And they connected and they talked about Holy Cross and his love for Holy Cross. And years later, when 9/11 happened, most colleges sent out an alumni, here are our alumni that were killed and the stories about them. And he said, I know her.
Oh, wow.
And then knew from that who I was. So he knew my name, and he approached me at a meeting and introduced himself.
Oh, wow.
So we had that,
That connection.
that connection, and so I kind of feel like my sister had like a little hand in guiding me back to where I belong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just needed to, not just, but you needed to take all, you worked in corporate, right? So you knew that environment. You worked, running your own practice, but it wasn't the way that you would, inevitably would have liked to have run it, or at least, you took pieces from it. And obviously you're training and just working in different environments. And that's so true. And I'm sure there's things now that you want to improve upon within your own office, right? Like, or your own practice of like things that, maybe next year you'd like to do this more
Sure.
and stuff like that. So, so you purchased the practice from him in 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was saying, I was just seeing my friend's kids there, and that's not the normal situation. This was, Bill, his name is Bill, Dr. Wood. He's extremely gracious and kind, and like I said, that's not a normal situation. Like any attorney would tell you that's insane.
Right.
But he just, was gracious and allowed that, and then COVID happened.
Okay.
So then there was a lot of uncertainty with that, and while he wasn't ready to retire, that was on the horizon and being talked about, me probably purchasing the practice, and I think that's what accelerated the whole thing. So when we opened back up from COVID, that was in the beginning of June, and I saw all the patients and, came up with protocols. I had a lot of friends who were had done that for their offices. A very good friend of mine is in organized dentistry and had worked on protocols in opening dental offices back up. And so I had a lot of information, and I think that made him feel very at ease with the whole thing for me to be doing that. And then a month later, in the wake of all that, I bought it. But the other thing that happened was, while it was shut down, he let me renovate the office.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've been there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so it's a very unique space.
It is.
And and it just needed, had great bones. It just needed an update.
A little facelift,
A little facelift, and it was able to be done without disrupting the business and with at much lower cost too. It's different.
Oh, interesting.
Because the first practice my friend and I bought, the part of the story you didn't hear was the landlord was trying to get one over us on the rent in the space the practice was operating in. It was not a nice space. And we purchased the practice, and simultaneously during the first few months we're building out a new space. And then moved between Christmas and New Year's, one office to the other. So I had already renovated an office, I had purchased one, sold one. So all these experiences, now I'm like, oh, I've done this.
But like, so for me, like thinking about that, I would be like, who do you even call? Who do you use? Stuff like that,
So-
right? So now, like you're saying, you found a way that was much more economical than it was in the
Right,
past.
because I had started with a company that does dental offices and stages you in different portions of your office as they renovate other areas. And
Oh, so it doesn't disrupt the business.
right, but I mean, I knew that was going to be very expensive and stressful, and I just wound up using the contractor who had done a lot of stuff in my house, and then just there, me being there, my husband, took up the tile floor, and getting. It was hard sometimes to get products. It was a little stressful towards the end. Like, are we going to get the floor?
Oh yeah, because the supply chain issues during COVID and everything.
Or
right?
it was just what was in stock.
Right.
So it wound up, working out really well. And then even after that, there were small things that I had done after that, but the bulk of it was done way more affordable because there was time. And even if it was one person doing it, he was there, most of the shutdown.
Right.
So that worked out to my advantage, and any attorney or professional advisor would tell you that's insane. Again, it's not the normal relation.
Not the normal,
yeah.
yeah.
So, and that's what I mean about, I think it was just like,
It's what it was meant to be.
Yeah.
It's like anything, like like a house that you're hoping to buy, but maybe you don't, get your offer isn't accepted. It's just not, wasn't the right house for you ultimately.
Right.
So I think it's, just the same thing. It was, you're destined to, meet this person and this now become your life here, right?
yeah.
So, so I know that you had to take a very holistic approach to orthodontics, but tell me a little bit about, since you've purchased Red Bank Orthodontics, what you have really kind of, I think you've transformed the brand to make it your own, and how you are working with your patients now.
So, kind of on theme, like everything else, the kind of children that I have, they brought such a different awareness to how I practice.
Okay.
My older one was very colicky, lots
Mine
of
too.
sensory issues.
Okay.
Dentistry, orthodontics, there's a lot of sensory things going on, noises, sounds, lights. It gave me a different awareness of that. Also working in pediatric offices, like I said, with kids with issues like that. It really gave me that mom awareness. And then my younger daughter wound up having an airway issue.
Oh.
We didn't, during my training, there was no really awareness of airway, which if you think about it, mouth and nose is in the area I work in. My specialty is orthodontics and dentofacial orthopedics. It's the acknowledgement of, like how function and our teeth are all related to our
Overall health,
face
right?
and our facial structure. Like if we
Oh.
mouth breathe, or if we're not swallowing properly, we don't have our jaws developing as they should.
Okay.
So I have, one daughter with the sensory issues, one daughter who had an airway issue. She had a nostril blocked off as an infant, and she would, she had to have surgery young. And
Oh, wow.
so that gave me that awareness, like, of, that emotional part of when you have kids with issues.
Right.
Like, I can identify with that. So I think that wound up being some part of my brand. And I have patients that have followed me from the pediatric office. I've treated one child, or I've treated them in a phase 1 because they know I have that awareness or patience. And I don't think I had that prior to having my own children. Even though I worked in the pediatric office, it's a different level of understanding.
Yeah, it just, you don't know when you don't understand, like, how that,
Yeah.
just how you feel as a mother.
And then also just giving, like, that other mom that you're talking to, like, the grace to be, like, it's okay you didn't know, or it's okay, I get that you can't get them to do X, Y, and Z. Like, but just bringing that element to it, I think that also we blame ourselves as moms, and we feel we're hard on ourselves. So sometimes that too, I feel like I can identify with that.
Right. So how do you take, like, more of a holistic approach?
So it's about we're taught, like, here's the malocclusion, or here's the problem, here's what you do. Well, I can't do that in every kid. They're not going to tolerate that, or they might have, like, ADD or ADHD and can't remember this.
Right.
And to do that. So I look at the whole person, and also the underlying causes, like I was alluding to with my daughter with the airway and oromotor function. There are things that are wrong, but unless you treat the underlying problem, you might be able to correct them or almost correct them, but they're going to relapse. So I kind of look at it as like, all right, let's treat the underlying cause or identify the underlying cause, and then what, as the patient, can they do, and then give options. Like I wound up doing a lot more with aligners, like, Invisalign was the brand everyone knew, but now their patents worn off and there are several companies that make aligners. So aligner therapy. So a lot of sensory kids can't deal with braces. They play with the wires, broken stuff all the time, and you circle the same drain of breakage, fix it, breakage, fix it. And then I switch over to aligners and they can tolerate it.
But not every person can use Invisalign, right? Like it has to
Right,
be
there are certain things that
certain
it's
things that's
not
approved.
ideal for.
Okay.
But sometimes I'll do a combination, like a section of braces with the aligner. So there are things that, as orthodontists, we're taught to move teeth. I can move teeth, like, with several different things.
With your eyes closed. I'm
Yeah, that I was trained to do. The other stuff I've had to figure out along the way. But my point is, if as long as you know how to do it, it's like figuring out a way that works for the patient. And maybe, they don't want to do full braces. I'm like, well, I can't do this area without them, so we're gonna have to do that, and then we can do aligners in combination with it for everything else.
I see. So are kids seeing the orthodontist earlier than they did when we were growing up, or is that something that, like, is just in my mind?
No, well, there's the recommendation by the American Association of Orthodontists is by age 7 you should be evaluated. It doesn't mean by age 7 everyone should have braces. It means there are things you can identify at that age, habits, these underlying airway issues. When you're a mouth breather, mouth breathers tend to have narrower palates, crowding, underdeveloped jaws. They have, sometimes there's function issues that you can identify because if there's a lip tie or a tongue tie causing low tongue posture or tongue thrust when they're swallowing or speech, you can identify those and then refer appropriately to someone who can treat those.
Okay.
Sometimes there are just things with the teeth, they can't come in because they're stuck on baby teeth, and we can redirect them. It doesn't mean that I'm, putting braces on that kid, but some kids, I had a 4-year-old in an expander. Her mom had 3 boys that had expanders. She was aware there was a jaw mismatch, and she had this functional shift, and she was going to keep growing asymmetrically unless it was treated. And so I wound up doing an expander on her to create symmetry so she can continue to grow symmetrically.
Okay. So you don't have to wait necessarily for the kid's baby teeth to fall out or grow in.
Correct.
The grown-up
Because
teeth
there
to
are
grow in.
things that have nothing to do with the teeth
Got it.
that you can address. Habits are a big one. I saw a thumb sucker yesterday, and you got to start talking about different ways to address that. We were
Right.
taught, put the appliance in their mouth so they can't get their thumb there. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense unless you these kids are soothing with their thumb. So I, as a mom, I'm like, all right, let's talk about what textures you like. Maybe you can hold something in your hand instead to soothe and just try to transition. And then I had a kid come back in 6 months later and most of the issues she had were fixed because she got her thumb out of there. They just naturally.
Do you find that pacifiers, if used to a later age, will impact how teeth come in?
So there's an appropriate age at which that should stop, and then sometimes because there's something on the roof of your mouth, your tongue can't rest there, so you're thrusting the tongue forward. So some kids have 0 problems transitioning. Not if they do have a issue with it, and then they're able to self-correct. Some kids can't.
Okay.
There are many reasons why, but I think as long as as long as these things are identified and discussed and there's a good chance things will correct on their own.
Right, yeah. But I think too, we talk a lot about this actually recently with a lot of moms that have come on the podcast and the medical field in general, and about awareness and how moms know more now maybe than they did than our moms did growing up. I think
Sure.
part of that is probably due to social media.
I was just going to say we have a different
different platform for it.
Exactly. So lip ties, tongue ties, and nursing. Sometimes I'll have a kid come in and mom's like, coming in because their teeth are a certain way and they don't like it or they're worried about it. And then I start to bring up a lip tie or a tongue tie, and they're like, they weren't a good nurser or something. And that's now getting out there more.
Okay.
And like the pediatric dentists are lasering lip ties and tongue ties and trying to get that earlier versus like, oh, as a mom, I failed. And if I wanted to nurse, I had a situation where it didn't work. And, but to your point, like these are things that's information out there, I think, on social media. I think we're just more educated now.
Right.
Because it's more accessible, the information.
Right. It's a different world.
Yeah.
So do you treat adults as well?
I do. I have a lot of adults in treatment.
Okay.
And
are most of them like in the
aligners?
Aligners, yeah.
Yes. So it's interesting because I always say it's not the age of the patient, it's how they're wired, how they're going to do with aligners. And I just finished treatment on a patient who had gone to another orthodontist first, and he just said aligners. And she's like, I know I'm not going to wear them. So we did braces for her, and her case came out beautifully, and she was so happy. And again, it's about the person.
Yeah.
And listening to them
Okay.
when they're saying that. So I would say the majority are in aligners, but then they don't want braces, but then they're not really as disciplined as they want to believe they are. So sometimes we get to a certain point in treatment and things aren't going as planned or as efficiently as possible, and it's like you just have to be honest with yourself, and if you're not wearing them enough, you can't keep progressing. It's
Interesting.
So sometimes it's like we don't want to fail,
Uh-huh.
and we don't want to admit to it, and so I have some patients that chronically cancel because I know they're not wearing their aligners.
That's funny.
But the majority are in there, and then I just started doing the behind the teeth braces. So so not
interesting.
everyone's a candidate for that, and it's definitely a more
So like cut up your tongue?
so yeah. So I think so. The second and third generation of it is a lot less like irritating to the tongue, but it's still a lot to get used to.
Okay.
And some patients, the patients I have in it, I started with maybe uppers first, and then we'll add lowers later, or vice versa. And my one patient that I'm seeing later today she's like, I'm going to wait till the upper's done before we do the lower.
So it's not as like all at once.
Exactly.
Yeah, got it. That's interesting.
But she said I knew I wasn't going to wear the aligners, and some people would cite like, oh, I'm putting my hands in my mouth and taking out aligners. It's just kind of gross. I don't like that idea. So they like the idea of having something attached to their teeth, but that you couldn't see. But you have to get used to anything when you put them in.
Yeah.
Putting braces on your outside of your teeth, your
Yeah.
lips and cheeks have to get used to it too. So.
Right. That's interesting. I know someone with aligners, and you can't really tell. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's just the way that she talks. I'm not sure. And then I had an uncle who was like in his like late 50s, and he wore braces for like years. So he didn't care at all.
Yeah. Some people don't. And some people are like, no way.
Yeah, not at all. That's funny. So you have a great team working
I do.
in the office. I've worked with Emily, who helps manage social media. I know is
Yep.
she away at school now?
She's getting her MPH.
Okay.
So she
she's
goes.
great.
Yeah, she's great, and she's also like when she was in college at the time when COVID happened. She came home and she spent a lot of time with my girls. She had babysat my girls, like when she was in high school when they were much younger. But then she spent a lot of time with them during COVID while I was at the office, and she helps drive around the kids too. And
Oh, wow.
but
Very
yes.
proactive person.
Yes,
She's very, she's like, understands like what needs to be done, which is
Yeah.
not common because I work with obviously a lot of small businesses,
Yeah.
and usually they're wearing 50 different hats, and getting, things
Yeah.
to me takes ages, or I have to do it or whatever. And she's like, here you go, here it's all done. So
Yeah,
it's
she's very
awesome.
thorough,
Very
and she's
nice
very
to work with.
proactive. Yeah.
And you have a great team working with you as well.
I do. I mean, buying a practice, that there's always staff turnover. I had 100% turnover within the first year. I wound up, even since then, still, certain people, it wasn't a fit and they left.
Yeah.
And I have a great team right now, and everyone is on board with the brand, which we had talked about a little bit. And also it's all about the individual and like what we can do for the individual.
Right.
And personalized.
Yes.
And they're great with those special needs kids, and they are very patient. And, we want to be the best part of someone's day. Come to the office.
Yeah.
you know, and like I say, it's a different space, and you don't feel like you're at a dentist's office.
Right.
And I have my little therapy puppy at my office, so
Oh,
sometimes
really?
so that was unexpected, but the universe served me up an opportunity to get a little golden doodle puppy. Our good friends were getting one, and she was sending me pictures of their puppy
They're so
play
cute.
date. Oh my gosh. And I was like, well, who's going to take the other one? And it was her sister. And I was like, the sister story, like I can't leave the sister with not the other sister.
Right.
So I was like, I'll take her. And my friend was in disbelief. I'm like, no, I'll take her. She'll come to the office. So since she was 8 weeks when we got her, she was coming to the office. And she's really calm, thankfully.
Oh, I was going to say, my
so-
dogs would destroy your office.
Well, that's the thing. You never know. So I got lucky.
You did.
And I have some parents that'll, be like, oh my gosh, my dog could never do that.
And I know, I've heard golden doodles. I mean, I like just in general,
Yeah.
dogs have a lot of energy and puppies, but I've heard they are very I guess maybe if they're not bred correctly, they're very high energy and like all over the place. So
Right, and she's more like that at home. Actually, my girls are like, how is she? Because they've seen her at the office.
she's like, I'm at work right now.
That's what I said. I'm like, she knows she's on the clock. She's at work, and
That's
she
so
is doing
funny.
her job. And she'll just lay there, and then someone will come there, and then she'll, like, get up and come over and sit and just be, like, so incredibly cute, or bring a toy over.
Right.
And sometimes that's great for the kids who are used to going to the pediatric dentist. They know what to expect, but here's a new space.
Right.
And then, and there's a puppy, and it almost, like, disarms
Oh my gosh,
stress.
that is a game changer.
game changer.
Yeah.
And they have to come into the treatment area. They walk by my office, and there's, like, the little baby gate
Yeah.
and the puppy.
Yeah.
And my treatment coordinator, Chrissy, will be, okay, and here's Valerie, our little, our therapy dog. And they spend a little time there, and it's like they forgot for a second.
Yeah.
And it's,
That's so nice.
so that's been really nice. And even the moms sometimes, they're, do you mind if I sit in there with her? We just lost our puppy
Oh,
or
my
a dog.
gosh,
And,
yeah.
and I'm like, sure, go ahead.
Right.
So it's been interesting,
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that. I love dogs. I'd
Yeah.
get like 5 more if I had a bigger space.
and most people do.
less work to do.
Yeah, exactly.
They're alive too, and it's a lot of work, so no more. But but yeah, no, that's great. I love that. So when you're not working, what do you like to do with your family in Monmouth County? Since you are really born here,
Yeah.
and rich history in
Yep.
Monmouth County.
So for me, I need to work out a
Okay.
certain amount of days a week. I'm not wake up at the middle of the night like Dr. Sally. I was listening to that,
She gets up
admiring
before.
her.
There's
oh
a
my
lot
gosh.
of people that do that. I am not one of them.
No, there are certain things about my morning routine that are special with each of my girls that I,
Oh yeah.
that
And
I
you need
just,
sleep, so can't get
and
up
that
early.
too. And I play tennis 3 days a week. I played at RBC and even a little in
Oh,
college.
lovely.
And so that's a big part of what I do for me personally,
Mm-hmm.
because you're talking about the self-care stuff. Like that's, I'd gotten away from it a little bit, and it makes me feel like myself and grounded.
does, yeah.
There's something and my mom even says that. She's like, you were always like that. So
Yeah.
so anyway, that. And then, this beach in the summertime. When the kids were little, we have such great parks too.
We do.
Like the parks are amazing. Even like my husband being from the North Shore of Boston, he's like, I've never seen anything like these parks.
Well, it's
here."
actually very unique, and I think I talk about this almost on every podcast now, but the Monmouth County park system is unique even to New Jersey. Like my dad lives in in southern Jersey. I won't name the county. I'm not going to start bashing other counties, but he it's not the same there. They do have parks, but it's not like organized the way that it is here. Like with golf and with all the programs and the classes
Yeah.
and just like the amazing upkeep that they do with the different parks and stuff. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And like my daughter does the plays at the Middletown Arts Center. We have there's such
Oh my
great
gosh, yeah.
resources in there. Count Basie.
Yep.
If you're into arts. Like the schools we were talking about before, before we start with my daughter.
Mast, yeah.
Yeah. Just how amazing.
Yeah, high tech at one point was like one of the best
Exactly,
high
yeah.
schools in the country. So
Yeah. So we have so many great things here. We're close to cities and
Yeah.
So yeah. So not that we have a lot of spare time, but
Right.
certainly.
Any place you like to go out to
Yeah.
eat?
So I love Angelica's in Seabright.
Yes.
It's always a delicious meal. And then Barnacle Bill's in Rumson is,
The best.
that was some place that I went as a little girl
Mm-hmm.
coming home from the beach. And my sister spent a year in Spain.
Okay.
And we picked her up from the airport, and she wanted to go straight to Barnacle's for a Long Island iced tea and a burger.
Oh, that's funny.
So for me, that's like sacred ground. So
Yes.
I go there every 9/11,
Oh, wow.
and with my parents and family and friends, and so that's also a special place. Like, and it's a family place. I remember when the kids were little, like you could go there and your kid be screaming or running around or having an off day, and it wasn't like
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
My son I used to bring him there when he was little, and they had, at that point they had the little like arcade in the back. I don't know if
exactly.
they still do.
They have some other games,
Okay.
but
But yeah, it's very like family friendly.
Yeah.
And it's delicious. Like those burgers are
Yeah.
just like they are. I don't think they compare to anything that I've
Yeah.
had in the area. Sorry, every other
I know.
restaurant. They're really good.
And now they have the outdoor space. That was one of the silver linings of COVID. They wound up, having waterfront property that they never had outdoor dining.
Right.
And
so
then-
I guess maybe they got some type of
Exactly.
ordinance that was able to insist,
Exactly,
push
yeah.
through because of the circumstances. But
That's what I'm guessing. But
yeah,
so
right.
so there for the family.
Right. Is it the same family that's always owned it? Do you know? I don't know.
I think there are different owners that
I
maybe.
see. Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
understanding.
I don't know.
My parents are there once a week, and they know, like, they have
Oh.
their circuit of places they go.
Do they still live in Lincroft too?
They do in the house I grew up in.
Oh my gosh. My
they're
parents
still-
too. Yeah, same thing. They haven't moved yet. They always talk about it, but I don't know if they ever will. So, what would you say to women out there who are maybe just become a mom or considering becoming a mom and are in dental school or considering becoming an orthodontist, because you really are an inspiration to so many, and people have told me in the past, I was thinking about doing this, and I heard your story, and it made me want to to do that, because it's not easy, right? What you've done, and it takes a lot of hard work, but I'm assuming it's gratifying, and in addition to the the actual paycheck, you get that emotional paycheck, right, at the end of
course,
each
yeah.
week.
And I think you have to have passion for it. You have to love what you do.
Right.
You were talking about the Sunday scaries, and I never have that.
Right.
Because if at the end of the day, it's time you're not spending with your family.
Yep.
Right. So it has to be fulfilling, has to be gratifying, and I would say that right now I have a woman in the office. She just got accepted to dental school. They now have you do hours at dental offices before you even apply.
Interesting.
So it was like watching myself go through this. And she was in the office, and I hired her, and she works and does sterilization and making retainers, and she was applying and got in, and I can see her passion for it. And so it's interesting because it's sort of like she says, like, I'm a mentor to her, and I don't think of myself like that, but I can
But
see.
you are.
But I am.
Right.
So I would say, got to have passion. Sometimes a little tiny setbacks aren't setbacks. They're a lesson for you to later.
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
So, like we were talking about this whole time, like my long circuitous road back home, like I needed to do that. I needed, some distance from like 9/11 and everyone knowing my family in the area, and I, just not having that be a part of it for me.
Yeah.
And getting those experiences along the way in the different offices, and having the experience, just sometimes, don't be afraid to have uncomfortable experiences. And ultimately, if there's something you want to do, you can figure out how to make it work.
Right.
I would think
There's always a way.
there's always a way,
always a
and
way.
it'll be your way. It doesn't have to be everyone else's way. Like I was saying, anyone would have told Dr. Wood or me in our situation not to do what we did.
Right.
But we had a level of connection or trust in
trust,
each other.
yeah.
So not every situation's going to look the same, and it's kind of like my brand. Like it's all about like your individual situation.
Right.
And honoring who you are, being honest with yourself. I had to be honest with myself, like that corporate position, it was, I was able to do it, but it just didn't feed me, and I couldn't be the doctor I wanted to be all in a lot of those situations.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us a little bit about this beautiful community that you're growing with Red Bank Orthodontics. Love to come back and visit the office again and
Anytime.
meet the puppy now. I'm so excited about. And my daughter just lost her, actually all 4 teeth at the same time, basically, of her front teeth, and I see them starting to come in. I'm like, I think you're going to need braces, my dear. I'm sorry. My sister never needed them. I was like, maybe she'll be the one, but no. So thank you again.
My
Where
pleasure.
can everyone find you?
So it's redbankortho.com. Our social media is Red Bank Orthodontics on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And, obviously phone.
Yes,
Give us a
yes,
call.
give
But
us a call.
you can also put an inquiry in through our email. There's a submit an inquiry
Okay.
or for a
On the
request for an
website.
appointment on the website.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
The winter time can be a little challenging. You get that cabin fever. Just a quick reminder to visit our website, not for anything specifically, but give it a look over. We have a lot of great resources on there. As Dr. Quigley mentioned earlier, we have an amazing park system. We have a lot of information about the parks, local activities, attractions. They don't all, I know we live in a beach community, but it's not all centered around things to do that are, for warmer weather. There's a lot of great resources and places to go, all kinds of playhouses and, Jungle Jim and Jane and Highlands and even, things that are free to do too. I have a winter guide that we put together for local activities that are free and fun within the community, and then also our blog section. We have great interviews from moms and mompreneurs in the area from over the last 5 years. So there's a lot of interesting stuff on there. Lists and guides. Our birthday party guide, our new one will come out this year, but we have our previous ones from old years. So if you're planning birthday parties for the year, if you are doing some home renovations, we have some great information about contractors and if you need to get out of the house with the girlfriends, we have a whole girls' night out section too for ideas if you wanted to go and grab some drinks or maybe to go and do a craft together or meet for coffee. So check it out, themonmouthmoms.com, and we have, of course, lots of new things coming down the pipeline, events and all kinds of new updated guides and resources for family health care and more. So thank you for listening and enjoy your day.
Thank you.